Hello! So, if you are there, I guess you want to know how to build your Rengar on top lane. This guide is going to help you. Right now on the screen you can see the basic Rengar runes. That are the runes that you are going to take in most matchups. With these runes you've got both the damage in longer fights as well as some healing. You've got attack speed that is going to help you in extended trades as well. In certain matchups you might want to change your last precision rune. For example, if you know you are going to build no HP and enemies have a lot of tanks, maybe you want to take cut down. Last stand is something that many Rengar players are playing as well. I myself prefer cut the grab, but that is kind of personal. You can change that, it doesn't matter that much. In your secondary rune tree, you want to use Domination. You've got Sudden Impact and Ravenous Hunter. Sudden Impact is basically the best choice right there, because Rengar doesn't really lack sustain that much, so it's not like you're missing much by not taking the healing in the first row. Chip shot you are not going to use that often, since you need to snare to actually make use of that. And Ravenous Hunter is actually kind of thing of discussion. I mean, many Rengar players prefer to take Relentless Hunter to roam easier. Some other Rengar players would like to take Ultimate Hunter if they want to have their ultimate more often. So that is something that you can change as well, but I prefer Ravenous Hunter because I just often rely on my healing. I mean, I often take fights that are very close, and if you are going to master Rengar, you are really basically forced to take trades like that, because Rengar often is on the edge of winning or losing the fight, and the healing from Ravenous Hunter can save your butt. Anyways, these runes are good with many different builds. Later on in the video we are going to see different build paths, and this basic rune setup is going to work both with Crit Build and with Bruiser Build. You can also use it with Lethality Build, although on Lethality Build I would rather recommend the next build I'm gonna talk about, that you are going to see just in a moment. Alright, so there we've got runes for the Lethality Build. Why Lethality is good with Electrocute build? That is good because Electrocute deals damage out of your AD, and it is physical damage. So Lethality boosts your Electrocute damage. Also, it doesn't benefit from crit all that much, so when you are going for crit build, Electrocute doesn't work that well. If you are going for Bruiser build, you are lacking AD a bit, so that Electrocute isn't that good. Conqueror is giving you more damage, and it also provides healing. With Electrocute you are going to have the best results on Lethality build, just because Electrocute is going to deal the most significant damage with that particular build. But also, the thing about Electrocute is that you want just short trade, get out, come back when your cooldowns are down, right? And Lethality build is focused on that as well, because you've got a lot of utility from Lethality items. You've got your Edge of Night that gives you basically a shield that enables you to not get CC'd if you use it properly. Also, you've got Yomu's Ghostblade that is giving you movement speed that helps you escape fights. Also, you've got Duskblade of Draktar that gives you invisibility after kill, so you can escape after killing enemy even easier. And all of these things are actually focused on helping you get out after killing one enemy and then come back when you've got your abilities up, right? So by the time your abilities are going to be up in longer teamfights, that is possible that your Electrocute will actually go off cooldown as well. So, and with other Rengar builds, like Crit build or Bruiser build, you are much more about long fights where you do not escape that easily and you do not escape that fast. So your Electrocute wouldn't get up in time because actually Assassin build is actually safer than other builds because it doesn't require you to stay in fight for so long. Although honestly right now Electrocute build isn't that great at all, so I actually prefer to go Conqueror even if I play Lethality Build, but it is basically like only Lethality Build is good with Electrocute, although with Lethality Build I still prefer Conqueror. But if you really like Electrocute, that means you should build Lethality Rengar because that is actually only build that supports Electrocute runes right now. Another very useful build on Rengar is Grasp of the Undying Rengar. That is the build that you can use with basically any item build you wanna use, because it isn't actually about helping you in the mid game. I mean, of course, those runes can help you in the mid game, especially Overgrowth and Bone Plating, because that is going to save you many times. But the most important thing about this build is how good Grasp of the Undying works with Rengar's kit. Rengar generally wants short trades. You want to boost your opponent with your stacked ferocity, then your combo, and then another stacked ferocity, so that you can do all of that in like 1 second. And after that, you are out. You want to get out after using all of your abilities, right? And Grasp of the Undying actually is very good on Rengar because as Rengar you want to stack your ferocity, that requires you to stay in combat, so that is exactly the same as Grasp of the Undying. Of course, with Grasp you need to re-combat twice as early as for your ferocity, but still it gives you the possibility to keep your stacks of passive while also keeping stacks of Grasp of the Undying, when most of other champions are actually forced to slow push the wave when they have Grasp if they want to use it, despite they don't really need to. And as Rengar, you need to do that anyways, so you don't really lose that much. And Grasp of the Undying provides you great short trade power, because if you take a very short trade and you proc your Grasp of the Undying, there is literally no champion in the game that is going to win a trade with you. If the trade extends a bit longer, the Grasp is gonna proc second time around the time when you get your Q back from cooldown. So that means you can take semi-long trade and that is going to be fine as well. That is the difference between Conqueror and Grasp of the Undying. With Conqueror, of course, with Conqueror generally is good with long trades, but on Rengar you still prefer shorter trades. It's more about longer trades in the mid game, not in the early game. And Grasp of the Undying enables you not only to take short trades, but also to take semi-long trades. Of course, you are going to lose in most matchups if you take a trade that is too long. For example, if you let Darius stack his passive on you, you are going to get chunked into tiny pieces, right? Don't take me wrong. Grasp of the Undying isn't a miracle run that is going to save your ass, right? But it really helps you to trade in the matchups that are normally really hard. For example, if you play against Volibear, if you play against Wukong, if you play against Shen, if you play against Urgot, if you play against Malphite as well, you want to get that grasp, because it gives you better trading in early game, and also it gives you bonus HP. The more you proc it, the more HP you get. So that is actually quite nice, because even if you don't use it all that much in mid game, that is still going to provide you some more max HP that can sometimes save you. Generally, you want to take the grasp in matchups that you feel like are hard for you. That is really like individual for everyone. For example, I know that many Rengar players do like to play against Riven, and many Rengar players don't like to play against Jax. I myself like to play against Jax, so I take Conqueror against Jax because I feel like I can play this matchup so well that I don't need grasp to win the matchup, and Conqueror is going to help me more in the mid game. But for example, I really don't like playing against Riven, and if I know that enemy Riven is good, I sometimes take grasp just because I don't feel so comfortable in this matchup. So, if any matchup is easy, generally speaking, if stat sites like League of Grabs or something says that this matchup should be easy, but you yourself feel like this matchup is hard because you just can't play it, then maybe you should just take grasp so that your laning is easier, because the fact that your runes are weaker in mid game doesn't matter if those runes gave you like 5-0 early game and otherwise you couldn't snowball that much. So if you feel like the lane is hard, then take Grasp of the Undying. It can work with basically any build, although it works the best with Bruiser Rengar, and that is gonna be shown later in the items section. Alright, so now to the build that is used against poking matchups. As you can see in this build, it is basically a Conqueror build that is changed a bit because you take Fleet Footwork instead of Conqueror and you take Overheal instead of Triumph. This build is particularly good against matchups that are going to just out-sustain you. For example, Cassiopeia, I know that is not really too often picked on top, but I play against her sometimes, so Cassiopeia, Vladimir, Kennen, you can take it against Gangplank, I guess, although in my opinion it's better to take Conqueror and just kill him over and over, because Gangplank has basically no possibility to win a lane against Rengar, because you can just straight up jump on his barrel and then kill him. But generally, you know, matchups where you get your HP low before you can even fight enemy, if they are poking you over and over and you cannot farm and you are generally screwed, it's nice to take Fleet Footwork. Of course, this rune isn't all that great later on. Conqueror is going to give you more damage, and damage is what you want the most on Rengar, of course, but Fleet Footwork helps you survive the lane. And so what is the difference between Fleet Footwork and Grasp of the Undying? Because I said that hard matchups you want to take Grasp of the Undying. There are matchups that are really easy, but they just poke you a lot. I mean, for example, let's take that Cassiopeia, right? Cassiopeia is very easy matchup for Rengar, because she can't use her W on every bush, right? So you are going to jump on her anyways. She cannot ult you, I mean, she can ult you, of course, but if she ults you, you just use your empowered W, that is like your get out of jail card, right? And she is fucked. You can basically kill her in one combo already on level 3. If you, maybe not one combo, but it's like you jump on her, you give her your combo, then like 1 or 2 auto attacks and she's basically dead. So it's very easy matchup, but if you let her poke you before you can jump on her, that can end bad. And that is why fleet footwork is sometimes helpful. Let's take, for example, situation, right? You went back to base because enemy jungler forced you to do so, right? So Cassiopeia had to push the wave. You have the wave under your tower and she is just poking you when you try to farm. It is literally one wave like that and you have 20% health. You can't engage on her anymore. You have to go back and that is going to repeat over and over and over. Your game is basically over, right? Fleet Footworks gives you opportunity to heal some of that health back up so that after the wave you have 50% health, not 20. And if you have 50% health, you can still kill her really easy. So that can be the difference between losing lane and winning lane, but it should be taken only if the matchup is really hard in terms of poke, but really easy in terms of all-in. If you play against, for example, Malphite, that is going to poke you, of course, but it is not that easy to all-in on him as well, it's better to take Grasp of the Undying. That is basically the rule. Alright, so now last rules for Rengar that I sometimes use. Those are very niche runes. You don't want to just take them in every game. They are useful in some particular matchups. They are useful in matchups that you want to get out after a short trade, but it's really hard to actually get out. For example, if you play against Darius, if you play against Sett, if you play against Mordekaiser, those are the matchups that you can play with Phase Rush, because you basically just one combo them and then Phase Rush lets you get out from them much easier than it would be otherwise possible. For example, let's take trading with Sett pattern. So your trading with Sett is just like you stack your ferocity on minions, then you jump on him with your ferocity Q, you use your combo as fast as you are able to, and then you run away without using your ferocity spell, right? Then he uses his E on you. If he uses his E on you, you basically just use your W, then run into the side so that he doesn't hit you with his W, and Phase Rush is going to help you a lot with dodging his W. That is actually most of his damage in so short trade, right? That is why Phase Rush is particularly good in that specific matchup. If you play against Darius, you basically... Well, if you play against Darius, you are basically fucked, right? I myself always actually ban Darius if I play Rengar on the top lane. But with Darius, if you take a bit longer trade, just a little bit too long, you are dead. That is basically how it works, right? If the fight with Darius is a little bit too long, you die. And Phase Rush helps you get out of this situation, right? Darius is so strong in early game that even Grasp of the Undying is not going to help you win longer trade. Conqueror is even worse than Grasp of the Undying in terms of helping you winning longer trades early on, right? So Electrocute, forget it, that's not gonna help you. Darius doesn't poke you that much, Darius just goes and kills you, right? So Fleet Footwork is not an option as well. And Phase Rush actually gives you a lot of value in terms of just getting out from sticky situation. It's not like it helps you to just straight up run, right? You still have to dodge his E, but having that bonus movement speed really can help you to dodge his E. So basically Phase Rush is a rune that just helps you get out from enemies that are going to kill you in one all-in early on in the game, right? And those are the runes that you wanna use in those specific matchups. There are also some matchups where you can use Phase Rush to chase enemies. For example, if you play against Queen, that can be helpful. Although I would rather prefer Footwork or Conqueror against Queen, but that's just what you want. Actually, just think about how you feel in this matchup, right? If you feel like you are good enough to kill her, it's better to take Conqueror or Phase Rush. If you feel like you are going to just try to play defensive and then maybe roam, then you should just go Fleet Footwork and try to survive the lane. That is basically how you play with Phase Rush when you take it, and let's now move on to the items. So, first build in terms of items that we are going to talk about is gonna be a Crit build. Crit build is basically the build with the biggest damage output in both short and long fights, but this build is this build requires you to be like really careful about where you are, what are you doing, whom are you fighting, and generally just be careful not to die, right? Because this build provides you with the best damage output, but it comes at the cost. It comes at the cost that you don't have tankiness of Bruiser Build, you don't have utility of lethality items, and if enemies are going to kill you, they are going to do that really fast, especially if you are crowd controlled. So with this build you cannot make mistakes, because if you do make a mistake, you are going to die very fast, right? And that's basically it, right? You can use it with runes like Basic, with Conqueror, you can use it with Grasp of the Undying, you can use it with Fleet Footwork, you can actually use it with other builds as well, but I don't really think that Phase Rush and Electrocute goes so well with Crit build, so maybe let's use those builds with just those three, right? Conqueror, Grasp of the Undying, and Fleet Footwork, those are the builds you want to use if you are playing Crit build. So let's now move to the next one. So the Lethality Build, that is one used with Electrocute, that can actually also be used with other runes like Conqueror, like Grasp of the Undying, and basically anything. But that is the only one that works with Electrocute. I'm gonna say that many times so that you don't play Electrocute with Crit build. Alright, so there, you can start standard with Doran's Blade and Health Potion. That is going to be like most of the games start, right? But there are gonna be games where you play Electrocute, but you play against poke matchup, and you are afraid that you can get poked out of lane, but you are not afraid that you lose all in. So then you can go with Longsword and 3 health potions, because you've got more sustain with that, at least before the first bag, and before a bit later on, when actually lifesteal from Doran's Blade starts to matter. But that is general rule, right? If you wanna just maximize your all-in potential, you start Doran Blade because it gives you not only AD but also HP. If you want to maximize your sustain while also maximizing your damage, because actually Longsword gives you more AD than Doran's Blade, then it's better to go with Longsword and 3 potions. Of course you can go Longsword and Refillable potion, but it actually isn't that great because you actually waste a bit of your potential. I mean, with Doran's Blade, you've got better all-in, and with Longsword you are supposed to have better sustain due to 3 potions, and 2 refillable potions are not enough to actually help you that much. You actually lose more because of lack of max HP that Doran's Blade would give you. You want to play with first item being your mythic item. I personally prefer Duskblade of Draktar if I play into Assassin build, but you can take basically any of 3 Lethality mythic items. It's up to you, but I suggest Duskblade just because it provides you with really good damage and great utility and free escape after killing an enemy. Then on your next items you want to just take what you need, right? If you need to roam a lot, you get Yomu's Ghostblade. If you play against, for example, Lulu in enemy team, that is going to just ult AD carry so that it knocks you up and then she polymorphs you, so you basically die before you can kill that AD carry, then Edge of Night is your go-to choice. If you are roaming a lot but enemies have vision all over the place, maybe Amberglaive is what you need, right? If enemies have stacked a lot of armor, then maybe you need a percentage penetration. If you play a lot of side lane, maybe Sanguine Blade is what you want. If enemies have, for example, Janna support and Karma on mid lane or top lane, you want to get shield reduction. If they are healing a lot, maybe you want to reduce that healing by Grievous ones. And maybe if you are teamfighting a lot, then GA is what you need, right? So it's all dependent on how the game goes. Okay, so now Crit and Lethality combined. With this build, there is not much you should change. I mean, the build path is basically like one build that you are going to take every game, so it's quite good for people that don't understand many matchups. Generally speaking, you want to start the run Blade, then you go for Essence River, buy your boots, and that should be 90% of the time Ionian boots. Then you go for Duskblade, then you go for Collector, Infinity Edge, and end the build with one of the items that are on the bottom. All depends on what you actually need. You can play this build with Conqueror, you can play this build with Grasp of the Undying, you can play this build with Fleet Footwork. You can actually maybe play it with Electrocute, but I would rather play Conqueror with this build, and it actually is one of the builds that provide you really good damage and also give you the utility of Lethality mythic item. I actually really like this build. It works in really many matchups and generally is really good. I mean, the only matchup it cannot work in is the matchup where enemies have like 2, 3, 4 tanks, right? If enemies have like at least 2 squishy targets, this build is gonna work because you have someone that you can one-shot. So that is actually one of best builds at the moment when I'm recording this video. It's pretty straightforward, it's easy to pick up, and I would recommend it for newest players on Rengar because it's not only good, it is very satisfying because it lets you one-shot people when also gives you possibility to actually not die right after one-shotting enemy carry, right? So I would really recommend that for people that start their journey with Rengar on the top lane, and it's really nice but you must remember this build it's not the highest potential to 1v9 games. If you just want a free elo, that is not what you should go. I mean, that is not what you should go in every game. There are games where this build is the best option, but if you want the highest win rate, you should play other builds as well. Okay, so now Bruiser Rengar, right? Fighter Rengar. And a build that is focused on you being in the middle of the fight, not disengaging if not really needed, and that is what you should build, right? So you start with Doran and Potion, then you go for your mythic item. That is going to be Gore Drinker in basically every game. You can experiment with 2 other mythic items that I have listed there, but actually Gore Drinker is generally what you want, right? So now, if enemies have a lot of burst damage, then your second item should probably be Styrax Gauge. If enemies are building a lot of armor, then Black Cleaver is a good choice. If enemies don't buy healing reduction and don't have very much burst damage, so that you can actually heal up when they are attacking you, then Ravenous Hydra is what you want. If enemies have a lot of burst damage, so you have already bought Styrax Gauge, then Titanic Hydra seems to be actually good. Now I see I have 2 Black Cleavers right there, but okay, never mind. I'm already making this video too long. I don't have enough willpower to actually go now and change that. You know that you shouldn't build 2 Black Cleavers, right? If enemies still don't build healing reduction, or they do build healing reduction but you already bought Ravenous Hydra, then Spirit Visage is really good thing. Remember that it also gives you magic resistance, so sometimes even if you don't have Ravenous Hydra, it's good to have Spirit Visage. And of course GA is generally a good item, but it should be rather bought on 4th, 5th or 6th item, because it doesn't make sense to build it as 2nd or 3rd item, just because it doesn't matter if you revive when you are not gonna do much after being revived, right? With this build you should play Conqueror or Grasp of the Undying. Other builds, other runes don't really work that well with this Bruiser Build Rengar. This build is actually very good to 1v9 games if you are ahead. I mean, if you are like 10-0 and you are taking the game by yourself, this build is what will give you the most possibility to win the game. Although, if you are not super ahead, you must be careful with this build, because it doesn't provide you so much damage as the other builds like Crit or Lethality. So if you are not ahead enough, you can't one-shot squishes with this build. You are going to survive much longer, but I personally sometimes catch myself on jumping in when I'm actually like, okay, I'm gonna kill this AD carry, then I flash out, we are gonna take Baron out of that plane, right? No, with this build, if you are not ahead as hell, you are not going to one-shot AD carry, right? You need to play with your team so that you take fights that are at least even, not the fights like I just one-shot someone and then run away. It's not possible with this build, because you don't have lethality items utility and you don't have crit items damage. So if you jump, you stay there, and you are not going to win 1v5 if you are not like super ahead, right? So with this build you have very high potential to carry, but also you must be really patient sometimes, because you cannot kill enemies as fast as with other builds. Okay, so that's gonna be it for today's guide, because as you can see on the screen, I'm not fully prepared for tank build. I hope you enjoyed, I hope it was helpful, and if you want some more Rengar content, please subscribe, give a like, that would be really nice. See ya!